Massive monster tornadoes that wiped out entire towns, lifting homes into the air, wrapping vehicles around telephone poles.
These are some of the most destructive tornadoes storm chasers have ever faced.
YouTuber and storm chaser Freddie McKinney documented a deadly tornado in Rolling Fork, Mississippi on March 24th of 2023, describing it as the scariest tornado he'd ever chased. And based on the footage, it's easy to see why. The footage is spectacular, but incredibly haunting. Watching him and his crew drive into Rolling Fork, which has been devastated by the tornado, homes and buildings are nothing but rubble, lightning flashes in the pitch black sky. But they also aided and captured footage of people helping out, pulling people from the rubble and transporting them to nearby hospitals. This was a multi-vortex tornado that hit Rolling Fork and Silver City, Mississippi. 17 people were killed and 165 were injured. Much of Rolling Fork was completely destroyed.
On April 26th of 1989, disaster struck in Bangladesh as a massive tornado ripped through the Maniganj district of the country and completely devastated the cities of Daulatpur and Saturia. Prior to the tornado, the district had experienced a 6-month drought, and after the tornado passed, the area had experienced devastation like no other, and the deaths of approximately 1,300 people had taken place. The storm had spanned a path of about 10 miles long and 1 mile wide, and had moved viciously with 260-mile-per-hour average winds that completely demolished every building within a 2.5 square mile radius and uprooted thousands of trees and other forms of greenery. In addition to the deaths that occurred as a result of the tornado, 12,000 individuals were seriously injured and tens of thousands of Bangladesh residents were left homeless. In total, the damages equaled approximately $1.5 million, and it was years before the two main affected cities could function normally again.
On May 27, 1997, a violent F5 tornado struck Jarrell, Texas, killing 27 people and injuring 12. It became known as the Dead Man Walking Tornado because of haunting images like this, where the tornado almost looks like some sort of giant destructive entity trudging across the landscape. Really eerie. One man who captured several famous images of the tornado is Ryan Beck, who was a college student at the time the tornado hit. He'd stopped at a gas station with a friend and noticed that there was a small tornado in the distance, so he decided to buy a disposable camera and snap some shots, not knowing what was truly in store. The tornado that had started out so small, and to quote Beck, even cute, quickly turned into a monster. The tornado had transformed into an F5, overtaking almost the entire skyline. Beck and his friend loaded into the car and roared out of there, but they could actually feel the tornado tugging at them. Beck described the sight behind them, saying, "I will never forget looking. I was in the passenger seat looking out of the driver's seat, and all I could see is tornado."
On May 4th of 2007, the small town of Greensburg, Kansas, with a population of just 1,400 at the time, was completely wiped out by a mile-wide tornado that ranked a 5 on the EF scale, meaning that its winds far exceeded 200 miles per hour. The tornado leveled every single building in the town except for one, and 95% of the entire town was completely unrecognizable by the time the storm had passed. 13 deaths occurred as a result of the tornado. Luckily, storm warnings had been put in place prior to the tornado's passing, and so people were mostly prepared, but no one could have been prepared to emerge after the storm to find out that their entire town had been completely destroyed. It took 10 years to recover from the damage caused on the evening of May 4th, 2007. When Greensburg was rebuilt, it became a green town, meaning that many of its buildings were certified as environmentally cautious. It is also now home to the world's largest hand-dug well. Fun fact. Today, the population sits at approximately 714 people, with many believing that the town will likely never again reach the number of residents it once had prior to the devastation of the storm.
The idea of a tornado picking up lava and spewing it across the sky is a pretty terrifying idea, but it doesn't sound real. It sounds apocalyptic, something you'd only see in the depths of hell, but it has been known to happen, like in 2018 in Hawaii. In May of that year, the Kilauea volcano erupted erupted, sending out enormous chunks of molten rock, destroying homes and forcing 2,000 people to evacuate. By May 27th, there were 24 separate fissures spewing lava. It also created a terrifying but luckily rare phenomenon called a volcanic tornado, which formed when the intense heat from the lava caused the air to heat up fast and rise, and as the rising air twisted and spun, it created a vortex. You probably don't need me to tell you this, but a tornado that lifts up lava and whips it around in the air is kind of a dangerous situation.
One twister is bad enough, but how about 12? Sounds terrible, right? And unfortunately, it happened. On March 18th of 1925, 12 massive twisters appeared over the Midwestern and Southern United States. All 12 tornadoes caused a pretty decent amount of damage, but one definitely outshined the rest. The one that later came to be known as the Tri-State Tornado, which would become the deadliest disaster in Illinois, the deadliest tornado in US history, and the second deadliest tornado in the registered history of the world. Second, of course, to the Daulatpur-Saturia tornado in Bangladesh. The Tri-State Tornado tore throughout southwest Missouri, southern Illinois, and southwest Indiana, and left in its wake the longest track ever made by a twister, measuring in at approximately 235 miles long. 695 people died as a result, and 15,000 homes were completely demolished. It was a tragic day in US history, and world history for that matter, to say the least.
The 1999 Bridge Creek to Moore tornado is one of the most terrifying and destructive tornadoes in US history. Struck on May 3rd of 1999 in Oklahoma, it was incredibly powerful, reaching speeds of up to 321 miles per hour, making it the fastest tornado ever recorded. Local weather stations were actually outright warning people that if they didn't hunker down underground, they'd probably die. The tornado traveled across the city of Moore and surrounding areas, destroying everything in its path. It flattened entire neighborhoods, ripping houses from their foundations, tossing debris for miles. It left behind a path of destruction several miles wide. Homes, schools, businesses were completely devastated. The tornado was so strong that it even threw cars and large pieces of debris into the air. In the end, 36 people were killed and hundreds more were injured.
On May 20th of 2013, another EF5 tornado appeared over the city of Moore, Oklahoma, with winds reaching up to 210 miles per hour. The tornado was the biggest part of an even larger weather system that had been tearing across the Great Plains and the Midwest that day and the day before. Luckily, because the storm had been going on for quite some time prior to the formation of the tornado, which lasted more than 39 minutes and devastated nearly 14 straight miles of the city, many of the residents of Moore had already locked themselves safely inside their homes or had taken shelter elsewhere. Still, 24 lives were lost that day due to the tornado, and another 212 people were severely injured. To this day, the Moore tornado remains the most recent EF5 rated storm anywhere in the world, and I personally hope it stays that way.
The Tuscaloosa Birmingham tornado was one of the deadliest tornadoes of the 2011 super outbreak. It struck Alabama on April 27th of that year. It was an EF4 with incredibly strong winds, ranging from 166 to about 200 miles per hour. Traveled across central Alabama, hitting the cities of Tuscaloosa and Birmingham and the surrounding areas. The tornado was about a mile wide at its peak. It caused severe damage along its path, destroying thousands of homes, businesses, and schools. In Tuscaloosa, the damage was especially severe. It cut through the city, causing widespread destruction. It damaged or destroyed several buildings, including the University of Alabama's campus, and left thousands of people without homes. The tornado continued its path through Birmingham, where it destroyed buildings, power lines were downed, and streets were blocked with debris. 64 people were killed here. It was one of the deadliest tornadoes in recent history, and the damage took years to fully recover from.
On May 22nd of 2011, an EF5 tornado completely decimated the city of Joplin, Missouri, almost a mile wide with winds exceeding 200 miles per hour. The tornado worked quickly to badly damage over 8,000 buildings and completely destroy over 4,000 more. Power lines lines were downed for miles, and the structure of the town was completely rearranged within a matter of minutes. 161 people died as a direct result of the tornado, and another 8 as an indirect result. 1,150 people were seriously injured, and when all was said and done, $2.8 billion worth of damage have been caused in just 32 minutes. Today, the town has been mostly rebuilt, but the legacy of the devastating event lives on in the town's history.
Have any of you watchers, we have a lot of people in the States, have any of you ever been through a tornado? Please let us know down below.
Cheers!